Thank you very much, sir, for your time here on ENCA. Now, first of all, South Africa recently got approved a loan by the World Bank. Was it a good idea to even apply for this loan? Is it a good idea to even use this money?
Yeah, I think, thank you for inviting me. First of all, I would say borrowing is not bad per se. All depend on what you are using the money for. If the money is used for a most productive project, I think the money can generate enough income for its repayment. So there is no a bad source of funding, but all depend on the way the money is used. That's what I can say about it.
So what's the difference then between the international capital market loans and the bilateral loans? Is there a difference in, for instance, the interest to which we pay back the money? Why are international loans better than bilateral ones?
Okay, sometimes these bilateral loans come with some stringent policy conditions. While money from the loans from international capital market do not have such a policy condition. So borrowing countries like African government have the free hands to use these loans for their development according to their development priorities. No, many critics have said that the loans from IMF and World Bank also affect and undermine economic growth because of stringent conditions attached to those loans. Like the same, like maybe a Chinese loan also, like bilateral loan. But yeah.
Have you seen any difference in terms of maybe if the African continent has more debt right now because of the COVID-19 pandemic and all the money that we might have needed to curb the situation in our continent, or have we gotten better? I know in South Africa it doesn't look that way.
Yes, I think the debt is increasing, even since Africa debt has increased from a low record of 28% in 2008 to more than 60%. Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, many African countries were already in debt distress, and many other countries were also at high risk of debt distress. So it's not only the pandemic also has increased the debt situation, but before the pandemic, many African countries also were having a very high level of debt.
Now, according to your research, I don't know if this is happening in other African countries, but in our country, for instance, an IMF loan that came into our country seems to have been misused. The funds there seem to have been misused, but also at the same time, there's a lot of corruption allegations against senior officials in our government, etc., that puts us in a very sticky position, right? Because that means the money that it was meant for is no longer going to where it needed to go.
Yes, this is the problem about many African countries: poor governance, corruption, public financial mismanagement. The money that they get from the international financial market or from IMF or from countries like China or other bilateral loans are misused. Instead of investing the money in more productive investment to generate economic growth to repay the debt, the money, when it is invested in infrastructure like road, other infrastructure, along with the health, education, it can generate more income for the country to pay back the debt. But what we see in many African countries, like the loan end up in the pocket of the governing elite. So, or they use it to pay salary. So how do you expect to generate income to pay the debt? This is what put many African countries in debt crisis. If not borrowing money, it helps many countries to boost economic development. But it depends on how we use the money.
So then the notion that the African continent will forever be owned by the international world is then true, and it's our own fault with the leaders that we put in leadership positions that continue to do such things.
Yes, partly, yes, because we misuse the money. As long as we continue to misuse the money, I think we continue to own these international financial institutions. No, poor governance, this is what is undermining African development progress. And this is also what is causing the recent wave of military coup in Africa.
Just my last question. I mean, I read in your report, and it was quite astonishing. You said Africa needs roughly between 130 and 170 billion dollars for a year for infrastructure only. So this is how much we need every single year to develop our infrastructure. Please just unpack that for me. I know that we need a lot of money to develop our countries, but so much each year.
Yeah. Infrastructure deficit is a major problem in Africa, and it's undermining our productivity, growth, and development. And this is estimated from African Development Bank, between 130 and 170 billion per year to fill the infrastructure deficit in Africa. This is what we need. So you see, it's very difficult to raise this money if you want to base on local domestic revenue mobilization. We need access to international financial market. It's an avenue for African countries to get funds to finance this infrastructure need. But they have to manage well this money. If not, it's associated also with high risk, which can cause a default in African countries.
Very stressful indeed. Well, thank you very much for your time here on Newslink and on ENCA, Mr. Yeboua. He is a senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies.